My impression is we've got, it's very hard to compare spaces.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that city staff was going to do this research, but Jen got assigned it and did it with Jenny's help. It's very, very hard to compare spaces. The public, the privates, the sizes, the parking, the on and on and on. And we've got the information here. What strikes me out of this, looking at cost, is that the 1912 Center run by HAI is pretty much in the middle for the price to hold your daughter's wedding. A 4-hour for-profit event, they appear to slide slightly down in terms of what it would cost. They are not the lowest. They are maybe 45, and I haven't done the math, but maybe 45% of the average price. Where they really are bottom price, with the two exceptions I talked about, the Idaho Commons at $65 for a 4-hour nonprofit, which I had this gentleman call and ask them, how much do you rent that? And my answer I got was, we rent it, but never to anybody but a university entity, although it's available. My guess is nobody knows about it. And the new Slurp and Burp price that's the same as the 1912 is that it's no wonder that when I asked Jenny, what is your most popular rental, she said nonprofits for 4 hours, which is why I asked this be run. I think the question in my mind, Dan and Tim, is do we as city council members and the council as a whole wish to effectively bargain basement nonprofits for the 4-hour meeting type at the 1912 Center, which is what we appear to be doing. And if that's the answer, then there it is.
May I speak to this?
Sure.
We have a use committee that was set up as a part of our lease agreement that has one of your council members represented on it for that very reason, so that every year when we go to review our pricing and look at who's using this space and address increases. We do it every December for a January increase. And this year we made a jump. We went from $18 an hour for the great room space to $20 an hour for the great room space. And we realized that the nonprofit organizations in this town need places to gather that are not going to, if you're about to hold a nonprofit fundraiser, you don't want to lose all of the funds that you're going to fundraise on your event space rental. You need to have it be something that can be a jumping off point for that organization. And I think the 1912 Center, as a community center for the city of Moscow, serves that purpose very well, that we are able to keep the great room available. We only will rent it to an organization 2 times in a month, so that it's available for all organizations to be able to host the events that they need to have that will help their organizations further their causes. I mean, we've discussed this multiple times, that as a community center, that's our biggest goal, is to serve the community.
But you do limit how many times?
Yes, they're only allowed 2 rentals in a month, and that's on purpose because we want to make sure that that we are keeping the space open for others to host their events as well. And we really haven't had any major abuse of that or a request for a space. And on top of that, I spend a lot of time because in this town, a date is popular. So, for example, October is the busiest month in this town for spaces, and anyone in this room can vouch for that. The fact that the spaces are all needed in October for events happening because the university is in full swing but not in finals, and it's not the holidays yet, and everybody gets booked. And I refer people constantly, and I've already made referrals for next July when I already have a date booked, and I've had a wedding request, and I've sent them to Sherman's Event Center as another option. But I will actually scan down this list and give them all the names because it's their wedding. They get to choose what the space looks like. That should be their choice. And it's not my choice, but I can offer other options. Our town has wonderful spaces, and I'm grateful for all of them.
Tim, I see you scribbling. You got anything?
I did scribble quite a bit. Oh, right out of the chute,
I like the building. I'll say that point blank. I went to 5th and 6th grades there, and I went to 4 years of high school there. So the Whitworth, the old high school, the 1912, whatever you want to call it's been around. It's been in this town for years and years and years.
100.
I think it's a great asset to the city of Moscow. As far as parking's concerned, I believe it'll improve slightly when the west part of the north parking lot is improved. I think most of the events occur either on weekends or after school or at night.
Typically,
So,
yes.
so a conflict with the surrounding area is mitigated because of that. As far as competition, I also believe that the rate for the nonprofits is a little bit low, and I'm going to attack that from 2 points. One, the competition, and two, your demand. And it's just business that if your rates are low, you're always going to fill, and your demand is huge. And I think we could generate more income by raising the nonprofit rate. I don't think that $30 or $40 for a 4-hour meeting, $10 an hour above what it is now, is unreasonable.
In difficult economic times, your nonprofits are the very first ones to suffer when things are tightened. And it is really important that if they're going to host a fundraiser, that we as a community building are offering them a place to do that. I do feel that that's part of our mission as Heart of the Arts. And one of the things that we were tasked with was doing the pricing, using the use committee as a gauge for that, looking at the rest of the committee. But we also have our mission as Heart of the Arts to consider. And Heart of the Arts' goal is to connect the community with the 1912 Center using arts and culture as our focus. So we're doing that. When we support the Moscow Sister Cities Association having a fundraising event so that they can have folks come and go to our sister city, and they benefit from that. They rent it only 2 times a year, but they do rent the building. Now, if we raise our rates in a way that doesn't allow them to gather, then, or if they have to gather at private homes, I mean, there's a lot of these that you have to understand. People will find spaces to gather for their events, but they might not be able to do the kinds of events that they want to have. Like Moscow Sister Cities Association has food that's Nicaraguan food. And in order to do that, they need access to a kitchen, they need access to a space to host that. I'm just looking at them as an example. We have a list on the back of our Cornerstone Club, where did I put it, of all of the different organizations that have used the building in the past year, and it wasn't even complete, as it turns out. We had people call us and say, hey, you forgot us. But this list of organizations that uses the facility, all of them are then able to do more for their organizations when they have events that help serve them. So it's important to keep that in mind. And when this also serves the Heart of the Arts mission as a company, we're a nonprofit. We have a mission, and we have to look at that as well. So this fits with what we're doing, and it does mean that that's also under consideration when we meet with the use committee.
Did your use committee, the budgeting committee that's held in December for January financing, think
We raised the rates this year, so they are $2 more per hour expensive than they were last year. And, you know, that's a big jump when you start to look at the total cost for number of hours. We also charge more for the kitchen than we used to. There's a number of different things that each year we look at to make sure we're gauging it appropriately. And yes, it will be due for an increase again January of this next year because, like you're saying, we realize that it is inexpensive, and yet we don't want it to be priced out of their I mean, you realize that the event numbers will fluctuate then accordingly, which is fine. I understand it will leave the space open for other organizations to come and consider this space, but it does affect the total dollars generated. So when you're looking at saying, oh, well, you'll use this event money to, I don't want to gouge the nonprofits in our town. I mean, that doesn't seem appropriate. It seems to me like we make sure that we're priced in a range that they can afford for their fundraising events.
I don't think anybody up here is suggesting that we're going to gouge the nonprofits, Jenny.
No, I know.
Money, and you're absolutely correct, money is tight everywhere. The council and staff just spent 6 hours this morning looking at the city's budget and where those dollars are gone, and everybody is screaming for dollars.
Mm-hmm.
The city's contributing a little over $100,000 to the building right now, and
Most of that's my salary.
I am interested to see if a jump from $20 an hour to $30 an hour would kill your nonprofits.
Is that what the city charges right now for the Hamilton Indoor Recreation Center space?
Yes. No, wait.
No, it was more than that.
Egan is 30
Per hour.
per hour, and Hamilton is 4 into 260 for nonprofits. Well, actually, the city's rate for profit and nonprofit are identical. They're not different.
Well, they were different before.
I'm just reading the
yeah.
chart.
If I might add, I think in the lease agreement, there is a mechanism for setting the prices if there needs to be some adjustment in the way that that committee works or the information that it now has to make those decisions. It's included in the lease agreement. I'm not sure we're here having to debate
Right.
exactly what that price should be, maybe where it should fall, but there is a...
Trust me, you are.
If you want to change the way that that committee functions in setting a price, then that should be dealt with in the lease agreement and how that functions.
If I may.
Yep.
Let me explain to you why this came up. Jenny made a comment in a previous meeting before this committee, when talked to about the roughly $100,000 the city pays, that effectively any excess funds we get from that are used to renovate the building.
From rentals, yeah.
Well, from rental fees or the subsidy, the two of them as a revenue source to the building, were used to renovate the building. That is against past council policy. That told me that there were excess revenues.
Well, no, the event
Was the-
rentals
was the-
wasn't
What brought it up?
policy, though.
Pardon?
The event rentals isn't against policy. We've been told,
But if the city is giving you $100,000 a year,
Correct.
and you're charging lower than comparable spaces for your rentals, we are effectively subsidizing the rental rate, and then those dollars are being used to some small degree, renovate the building. In my mind, it's money moving around, and it's tax dollars renovating the building,
Well,
which was against a previous council's policy.
right. What we can show you is that the $60,000 given to Heart of the Arts this past fiscal year has been expended on our salaries, and then we also had to have $5,000 come from our event rental fees to help pay our salaries. So the hourly and my salary are paid for with that $60,000 management fee. Okay, the $35,000 a year for utilities has been more than expended, which is the report that Dwight handed to you from us. In the Daily News article, it was quoted as $2,000 because I ended up handing him a report that didn't have our janitorial costs in there, and I put all those in there. It's actually $3,474 more that we are expending. So Heart of the Arts is spending more money, and that's coming from event rental money. But what's important is event rental money is, in essence, Heart of the Arts' general fund. When I replaced all the lights in the great room the other month, that cost came from our general rental. When we do a floor refinishing in the great room to the tune of $2,000,
That is your responsibility per the agreement.
Absolutely. But what the event rental fee is it works to works to the building's repair and maintenance fees that are not covered in our term agreement, which means if the city was running this facility, those expenditures that are surprises would come down the pipe and you'd have a totally different number each month coming at you. We're keeping your number the same, but we are very clear that the number that you give us every year as a fee to run your property, we expend that dollar amount. It is not going into building renovations.
It was your comment, Jenny. I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't.
No, I was talking about
couldn't-
event rental money.
I couldn't follow the financial enough to be able to tell.